Sarah. Township AI.
The East Plainfield Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the December night. Call meeting to order. On my far left, is John Thompson, Jennifer Horner, Ryder, and newest member of Dave Bowen is our Director of Planning and Zoning Officer, and Leo is our Administrative Assistant. And I'm Randy Patterson, the Chair of the Planning Commission. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With the introduction of Ryan Mark.
So I just want to introduce our new planning commission member, Ryan Martin, to the board. He is a lifelong resident of Lancaster County, a business owner of 2 businesses in downtown Lancaster. And this will be his first time serving with local government, but he's coming here with a lot of experience serving on boards, committees, including the Lancaster County Community Foundation, advisory committees for the Economic Development Company of Lancaster and Lancaster History, the Marketing Advisory Committee for Lancaster County Chamber of Commerce. He's also currently serving on the executive board of Lancaster County Farmland Trust as the secretary. And his term will be expiring November 19, 2029. That's it.
Welcome, Ryan. Some of us know Ryan from our past experience. The city of Lancaster. Sarah, you know.
Yeah, our kids play sports.
Sports
together.
parents.
Yep.
Jason.
Did you get?
So we will put Ryan on the choir seat today, making all our votes so. Next item of business is the approval of the November 18th, 2025 minutes. John did point out one correction that needs to be made on the last paragraph of new business for the school district. Sarah did make a motion to defer and ask for an additional clarification. John did in fact second the motion, but the motion carried by a vote of 3-1. Chair did not vote. Other than that, any other corrections to the minutes? Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? So moved. We have one item of old business, which is the 2025-14 land development plan for Concord United School District at C45 Thorny Road. We did ask the applicant to come back after the November meeting. You take some time to resolve some of the issues with the DMA. First DMA letter, I want to ask the DMA's response. So I guess for everyone here and for Ryan in particular, if we could just go through the original letter and if there are any changes as a result of this December 2nd letter from DMA, then you can tie those together and maybe just a little brief description of the project again.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually don't have the first letter, but I can still touch on the items that we decided. So the project as a whole is for the Cliff Elementary School. The project did a building addition in the back, it's not intended to increase students or staff, it's just for programming. It'll also propose reconfiguration to the parking lot as well as addition of some more parking both to the north and to the south. And then some stormwater enhancements, sidewalk enhancements. There'll be a great facility not tucked in the back of the project. Since we were here last, the last PC meeting, we went back to the drawing board for the concerns that were voiced, which predominantly revolved around trying to squeeze in some more parking. As a update, the site currently is a non-conforming site when it comes to the parking counts. The amount that we've added in still is non-conforming for the zoning ordinance, but it has been increased. The last PC meeting, it was just asked that we squeeze in as much parking as possible. Whether or not that gets the site to conforming, it does not, but we still have been able to squeeze in another 16 spaces, as well as an additional 11 that are considered just event parking within the bus loop, trying to get parking anywhere. So we feel right now the site is pretty maxed out with parking. Unfortunately, our sheets would be here, but we're right at 160, 165 spaces. The site requires 182. We also went back in the sidewalk that was voiced at the last PC meeting. Originally, the sidewalk was a deferred item. We went ahead and proposed it now as part of the project. So the sidewalk will come up and around Hornig Road, and then we'll connect into the corner of the property line. The curb line, however, we are still asking that can be deferred until future. We went back and forth with DMA, and they agreed with us that it would drastically change drainage on Hornig Road. And due to the guide rail and the grading along that hillside, it would just be pretty extensive to do as part of this project. So we just asked that can be deferred.
As benefits show where we're talking about the deferral piece.
So plants.
Their finger.
We're being recorded. Yes. Plan south, there's a Horning Road comes along here, so is there another plan that kind of?
There's an exhibit to the right there, Ken. On the
Oh, right there. Okay, all right. So there's along Horning Road as it comes around and then it starts making that curve there. There is guardrail along the majority of that because of the elevation change. Currently, this is a playground where the kindergarten and first graders are utilizing. So we're moving the playground into like the center core of the building. So a lot safer area for them. No chance of them to go scurrying off someplace they're not supposed to be. So.
Thank you.
So on top of those two larger items, the parking addition, the sidewalk, and the other item was the stormwater easement, which we did work with DMA, and we were able to terminate the section that went through the building addition, and we now propose it to go right outside. So as far as, and I can run through this later as well, as far as a few labelings and a tiny easement that just needs to be extended for an existing pipe, the stormwater easements are more or less finalized. So in essence, that's the project change we made since last. If you'd like, I can run item for item like we did last.
Look at Ryan. Actually, I think your letter of December 2nd goes item by item through what we did in November. Their response to those changes, and that was really the essence of our deferral, was to get more detail on some of those issues. They then have a review from December 5th from DMA. Not change anything. It does still point out some directions that you need to make on the looking, I guess, on the drainage easements, just notations. That's easy.
More or less just to give more clarification on what's terminated and what.
Yes. Other than that, I think I'm gonna look at the commission members and say, if there's any other items you want them to address from our November meeting that you did not feel was addressed by their December 2nd letter or the DMA letter, which we just received this evening.
I don't think so. I just have one question on the you mentioned did you add more parking in the like in around the bus loop?
So the bus loop, it's not hard striped parking. What we did is we just depicted after school hours when there's no buses.
Got it. Okay.
We can fit about 11 cars around that.
Yeah,
So it's just a depiction of if needed, overflow parking is needed, here's where you can park.
okay. So when the buses aren't there, then you would be able to do that. Okay. that
And we
makes
called those out separately on the cover sheet, so
Yeah.
those aren't included in the 160 number that I mentioned.
Okay.
Those are the-
Okay, and this has really nothing to do with anything, but when you're relocating the playground, so are you using the same playground equipment that's there and just moving it, or are you getting all new playground? That's great, that's pretty new, the kindergarten, yeah,
And just to relocate that.
okay,
Unfortunately, some of our other schools, the condition of the playground might have been at the same age of one of the renovations of the school from decades ago.
Yeah.
So this was only purchased, I want to say maybe 3-4 years
Yeah.
ago.
yeah, because that was a new playground.
The plan is to move that one back to that location, maybe supplement with a few other items. Yeah, because they bought some items that are interspersed amongst the trees. There's some musical devices they play, and there's some other things that the kids do.
And I know one of the issues we talked about in the parking issue was people parking in the neighborhood as opposed to on the site. And we discussed the parking lot to the rear, the circulation pattern there, but we also, so I know Google Maps only takes a photo of everything. But the current Google Map photo shows no cars in that parking lot and all the cars out front. Question was, is there a possibility of using signage to say teachers, staff? Park in the rear parking.
Themselves or, we could possibly even number, and we've started looking at that at the high school campus as well, just so that this is your space, nobody else's, obviously, it still involves people, so that doesn't mean don't read the signs or follow those instructions, but we could try. But yeah, that's what Brian and I have talked about it, and, some kind of signage just to help dedicate those areas to that. There's no reason that staff cannot park in the backside of the building because they have access to all the doors from that side.
Thank you for that, appreciate it.
I like the mall, everybody wants to be closest to the door.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a large swath of parking that's just not being utilized.
22 vacant spaces there today.
So the Google Maps shop is not just a point in time.
Oh, I mean.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that.
So why don't people park back there, just because it's too?
People will walk that. Lazy it is, I'm just trying to be honest here about the
Mm.
situation. It's a challenge, we've had it in a lot of our buildings. But this one was probably more difficult than any of my, I believe with the addition of the parking on the south side, that's gonna help with a lot of staff, they're gonna look parking there, maybe as opposed to the back or whatever, so. We'll definitely look at working out something with the school itself on how we dedicate who goes where, who should be parking. Everybody has a hang tag on their mirror, so we know that car belongs there, so it's just.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the commission?
I have a question. It's been nagging me, but it doesn't have anything to do with the project. It's just something that I've noticed about this rear parking lot. You have on the plan, the traffic flow going along the north side of the building, down to that rear parking lot, of course, is the only way you can get there to it. But then you have the traffic entering that parking lot, going straight and cutting to the right around the back side of that parking lot, and then coming around, dropping kids off, and then crossing back over the incoming traffic and going,
They're doing pickup back, not.
yeah, excuse me. They pick up their kids on the back and then make a left.
Coordinated with the board, so they're directing traffic and they're getting the kids moving through as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we only have one observation, and that's if you had the incoming traffic, the cars that are coming to pick their kids up, if you had them make a hard right as soon as they get to that parking area and loop around the backside and go around, you wouldn't have that crossover point there. You wouldn't have to have staff standing there, like letting people in and out of that, because they're crossing traffic, the people that have picked their kids up.
I get it.
It's nothing to do with it. Something that's been happening.
So if you ever would want to go back there and experience it, they actually double stack the lanes, the cars. Once they get back in there, they double stack it. And then the parents all have something on their phone, they say here, so they can send that student. So it's not like a head rush back there, it's very organized and it flows very smoothly.
It's great. Any other questions?
Anything from the public? Do no one is here, Bryce. Hearing no further conversation, discussion, I'm willing to entertain a motion to go to 2024-2025-14. We have a DMA letter of December 5th. We have a DMA letter date, but it's in a second. No, that's the end. It was, I didn't bring around with me.
That's out?
Well,
Probably just report with you.
yeah, okay. That's a good thing, Sarah. The December 5th actually incorporates their previous comments as well, so only the new conditions would be in their December 5th letter. We have that. We never got a letter from the county planning department, to my knowledge. On this.
There was one received, it was in this last month's meeting file. I did not put it into this month's file.
I do think we discussed that, and I think you addressed all of those issues in the county department, planning department letter. So we'll focus our emotion on the December 5th letter if someone is so willing to do so.
I would just like to make a note about the December 5th letter, since you
Yes.
guys just got that today.
Yeah.
You haven't had time to review it. There was no staff concerns in reviewing the letter. The primary item that was mentioned was for that easement that's getting moved, originally going through the building addition. DMA didn't have any serious comments about the proposed removal of that easement. It was, as Brian noted, was just the labeling and being more legible. That was the comments from the engineer. But the other comments were mostly carried over from the other letter, and many comments were addressed. So we didn't see any major concerns with this letter that we just got. Just wanted to make that clear before.
Thank you. So we do have some waivers and modifications related to that in the December 5th letter. Motion.
I'll make a motion, plan number 2025-14 land development plan for Conestoga Valley School District at 845 Hornig Road. I'll make a motion that we recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve this plan, subject to the comments in the December 5th, 2025 David Miller Associates letter and the Lancaster County Planning Department's letter dated whatever its date is. And included with that is the, do you want me to go through all the specific?
Just say waivers, modifications.
Yeah, the waiver modifications and deferrals as set forth in that December 5th letter.
Okay, we have a motion. Everybody understand the motion? And second for that motion? Jansen is a second. Any final conversation, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you for coming back. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right.
Thank you.
Lancaster County. Not the 15th.
Can't you get all the construction done in 1 year? Not that much, right?
We've been through all the growth all through the hurting capacity.
Well, you can then wait 1 more year, do it the next year.
We're here and we do the building entity and no disruptions. And, yeah.
Smoke town is.
That way, I don't have to bring modulars in, which I have to put and those kinds of things. At the end of the day, it's actually less expensive for us. So, all right, well, thank you very much.
We have no new business. We have one briefing item, which is across the street
Yes, so nearby, the recently approved land development plan at U257 Philadelphia Pike, they're actually gonna modify it, bring a new land development plan forward, and this is just for a 5,000 square foot storage building. And they're adding to the plan, and this is gonna go over the approved solar areas. There's a small portion of that solar field is gonna be for this storage unit, so it's not gonna be connected to like, it's not gonna have bathrooms, it's not gonna increase really the use, but pretty straightforward plan actually, because it'll actually be using some of the existing stormwater, and all the stuff that they're building right now, so. Easy to review for you.
So not necessarily in January, but I think,
So that one will be very likely to be in the January meeting, just because it's, most of the heavy lifting is already done on that. And just as a general heads up, January agenda is gonna be a bit heavy, because there were some plans that were gonna come here. People didn't really want to come here for December, so. Doctor, so. Thanks for coffee, just one of you. Good here.
thank you, Chief. Other business is the comprehensive plan. Well, just a little bit of an update. We kept it on the agenda to have an initial conversation, discussion. Needs a little bit more time to read it. We may need more to read it in detail. I'm done. I did read through it. Have some comments of my own related to what I read through. But Jacob thought we could have a conversation tonight. However long we wanted to have that conversation. But since there are two new supervisors that will come into office in January, the supervisors won't take this up until probably February or the end of January.
Yes, and to be honest, I mean, there is basically no time pressure on this to be forwarded. We can talk about this for however long we think till we have a good draft.
Okay.
Just want to make that clear that there is no, even in January, they're still not, if you
Okay.
think you're not comfortable with it, you don't want to make a recommendation.
Well, what we did talk about in January is having
Yeah.
HRG attend. Just to go summarize the plan and probably focus on chapter 10, which are the recommendations. Chapter. Okay. So we'll still plan on doing that, I think, if everybody's agreeable to that. I think that's, and when they go through that, they'll pick up pieces that address the other 9 chapters related to those. And is there anything you want to give Jacob tonight related to the conversation about the plan?
Yeah, I guess what the hope would be for any kind of just really glaring overarching comments. And then if you have more, just like a detailed thing, the typos, more specific things, feel free to send that to me and I can get that to our consultant. Just be clear, this is the first draft. And so there hasn't been township comments actually forwarded for this as well, to the consultant. So I guess if there's just bigger issue items you see, or just anything you think that should be discussion for tonight, that way we can kind of get it ahead of time to before January.
Okay.
We do this.
Yeah, there are some typos, but that
Yes.
can just be, something that happens when you change a document and print it out, and things like that. I have one that bothered me throughout the document, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, but it did make sense to me, and Ryan can understand this one for me. In the economic development and redevelopment opportunities section, but then also other places where they talk about rezoning, they use the term residential uses on the first floor and commercial or office uses on the upper floors in C1, C2, and MU. Shouldn't that be the opposite?
Yes, from a planning perspective, yes.
Okay, I hope you make that change. Because having residents on the first floor in a commercial district make no sense to me. But that is repeated often, so I thought, no, they actually meant that. So, if it's missed once, I got it, but it's the same everywhere. That one, I think, is the glaring error that really needs to be changed or discussed if they have, more to say about that. I mean, certainly you can have more commercial and retail on upper floors, but the residents should not be at the bottom.
Generally, yeah, it doesn't go in that order.
My other comment was, under the recommendations, under infrastructure, there were none. And yet Bridgeport is highlighted extensively. So are the trail systems. But there's no recommendations in chapter 10 related to that. So I don't know if that was just, they got skipped, missed or what, but clearly Bridgeport should be there because that's a lot of infrastructure.
Study.
Yeah, the study was done. You picked up the sidewalk issues in several different places, but I was curious why the focus was on Ronks and Stroudsburg and not Birmingham, not Bridgeport. And maybe it's because the Bridgeport is part of the bigger plan. But if you're gonna make those connections, it seems that we should list not just two villages, but all the primaries. I know in one of the plans that we saw related to Birmingham, doing an addition that really was mostly in Lake Hawk Township. But we had a small piece in East Lampeter. The conversation was pedestrian safety along 340, which was in East Lampeter Township. So those were my major comments. I'm a little concerned about housing. That there's really not enough buildable land. 4-acre sites don't get you a lot of housing to meet the demand. So I'm a little concerned about that with the urban growth boundary not changing significantly. That we didn't add any additional sites that you could actually do significant mixed use, which is what I would prefer as opposed to strictly housing. But those were my comments. I have others, but I'll send them to you. Anybody else?
I was just, at this point, my own comment, I think it should wait till the consultant comes, but on page 18, talking about buildable land to raise, there's a there's a couple highlighted sections in those large parts of the facility. There's that, which then redevelopment opportunities, and one of the sections that's highlighted appears to be in an area with a bunch of existing homes. They just happen to be on larger tracts of land. So I'm not quite sure. Yeah, that's the only comment. That's a misreading. I was interested in the redevelopment opportunities. Actually.
That's one of the themes you see in our plan. We large focus on redeveloping within the urban growth boundary. That's kind of, I think, what came out of the steering committee as well. Not so much as the greenfield development outside of, when I say greenfield, not like green, development over farmland, not so much on that. It's kind of conclusion that kind of came out of that.
And part of your challenge is as you do that redevelopment, especially if you increase housing density, you're going to get more and more pushback from existing residential property owners in those districts as opposed to building something that's new. Since you mentioned the redevelopment one, I'm concerned about the overlap of the business improvement district on Read 30 and the idea of redeveloping the hotels as housing. Kind of defeats the purpose of the business improvement district unless it's come back.
And that was something actually in reviewing this, a staff comment that I had was there kind of wasn't a consensus on that, the redevelopment in, their C2, C1, that's kind of something really wasn't discussed and agreed on. So that's the comment that we are going to from staff as well that we noticed.
We just went off with all that work to get the business improvement district approved.
I had the same, I was like, oh.
Potentially significant properties out of the mix from generating significant revenue.
And I saw too, even in the recommendations, there's still quite a bit of work to be done.
Yes.
So that Lancaster Mennonite campus was getting added to the urban growth boundary. Yeah, very new to all this, but how does that work as far as the campus being added to the urban growth boundary?
It presents it as an opportunity for future development.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that the campus has to move.
Yeah, and,
Go away.
and they haven't, in this type of situation, is a proposed option. It doesn't mean that this has been proposed to Mennonite. This is still as part of a plan. This is not something that has been necessarily presented to someone like that.
No, but I will say that correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but property owners, while they are certainly part of the conversation, do not need to approve
I figured as much.
being
yes.
included in the urban growth boundary. That would be a supervisor decision.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that a negative to a property owner generally to be added to a urban growth boundary?
I would, depends on your place in life. If you want to increase revenue opportunities for your property, being included in the urban growth boundary is to your benefit. Because that's where developers are going to look, because the infrastructure is already there, so developers don't have to cover the cost of installing infrastructure, sewer and water. So I would say it's to their benefit to be included. Whether everybody around them would feel that way, I don't know.
Yeah.
So think of Whitmer as an example. I think Whitmer's already in the urban growth boundary.
Yes.
But let's say it wasn't. And all of a sudden you decided to put Whitmer in, you put pressure on a lot of surrounding land over time, additional development pressures, because the next logical step when the next review comes is to expand from the existing urban growth boundary. So, but yeah, I think from a property owner's perspective, I don't know that there's a negative to being in the urban growth boundary. And it's just a recommendation. It's not a.
Yeah, I do have, not shared it here, but I will share it after the meeting. So remember I mentioned there was a survey.
Yes.
So got a pretty good response from that, around 120 so responses.
Okay.
And it kind of goes into like how the township feels, how residents feel about developing within the urban growth boundary, expanding it, things like that. So I will share that. The results are pretty interesting. That will end up being in here, but it's not in this draft just because it was still ongoing survey.
I think they mentioned.
They mentioned it, I think in the part two.
40 responses.
Yeah, it has 40 at that time.
There's something in there.
And that was before actually it was put in the newsletter. So when the newsletter went out, we started getting all the responses. So those results are a little bit interesting to kind of see because
Yeah.
this is kind of where we want to go, so it's good to kind of get the feel of the residents. 'Cause some of these questions are very big questions to be asking.
And you think like 120 was a pretty good response?
It's decent. I mean, it's not like not statistically significant where we can say this is how the township feels, but it gives us an idea because it's kind of a little pinhole peek into how the township feels. I think you need over 1,000 responses to have it technically be representative. So, but gives us an idea.
To me, the challenge with any plan like this for a community like ours is you have this large swath of agricultural land and villages and culture that you want to preserve, but you also want to have economic development and growth, and they often will push against each other. Some places have nice boundaries. East Enfield Township has 283 as a really nice boundary between the urban growth areas and the ag preserve areas. We don't really have that per se as a highway. Not that I'm recommending a highway through East St. Peter. But I think that challenge, our urban growth areas are quite small for the size of the township, to be honest.
Could someone clarify something that keeps coming up throughout this plan and tonight? Then this plan keeps mentioning that the Smoketown Elementary School has no future plans, but yet it keeps coming up as being utilized. So do we have a time frame on that? I have no idea.
Are all schools being circulated through there as part of this project? And that's what it's seeming like so far.
So the discussion it was in the steering committee, was eventually, the school, if it's not being used, was looking for different opportunities with that. That was just something that was kind of in discussion where people were brainstorming in the committee where it could be used as a rec center, things like that.
I think it's.
I don't know the timeline. Sure someone does.
Yeah.
I think we just missed them.
Yeah, we should. It's on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we had any clarification on that because I've heard numerous accounts on both sides that basically said it's open, it's closed. Apparently it's not closed yet, so. okay.
Ironically, the plan just here is just actually held that up of closing it longer, so,
Because they're moving Fritz there for 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yeah, that's why I said that when I was.
I thought it was just 1 year,
Does
okay.
it really need to be 2 years? Doesn't look like there's that many.
It's 2 years just for this project?
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
which doesn't seem like that significant of like a project.
They are also, I think, greatly changing a lot of the stuff that just hasn't been changed in decades there. I think that isn't really on the plan, I don't think necessarily.
Like interior. The interior's still pretty nice.
Interior windows and I think HVAC and everything, mechanicals.
The rec center would be amazing.
and that was, something that was kind of in discussion, is, hey, we don't really have a lot of any indoor facilities here, so, yeah. That's the golden question.
It's been discussed for decades.
Rec center.
Should how old I am, but it has, as both as joint townships creating a recreation commission. And I guess, Upper Lake Cock is kind of pulled away from that, I think. So it would really just be pretty much East Lampeter that would be looking at that, because West Lampeter has the Y facility. So, yeah.
And it came up too in the committee discussions about the library, not having a library, and that was kind of what is, there's some back and forth there. I don't think it was mentioned, having a recommendation for that, just facilities pretty close by. And then the funding,
Let's go back to that.
yeah.
Any other broad brush strokes you want to provide, Jacob? We'll have additional conversation then in January, along with the presentation.
I guess the one question I just had for the January meeting, if you mentioned that January meeting's really busy, would it make sense to push this to February, just so we're not overly tired and want to get out of here?
Yeah, that's something I think when we get closer to, how these agendas go, we
Yeah.
just pretty much, when it gets pretty close, that's how we know so much stuff happens. So if it ends up being a really long agenda, I think I'll reach out to you guys and kind of see where you guys want to go with that. Again, maybe that could be something where we just have the presentation and then we can continue these meetings out.
February for our recommendation.
Maybe just have the presentation with a little bit of back and forth, and then if it's really long and you're just like, yeah, we can't do this.
And did I hear you say, maybe this when you and I spoke, but we only actually have the folks who put this together for one meeting?
Yes, we have them for one more, where we're not getting charged.
One free meeting?
We
Yeah.
can come back,
So, yeah,
we just have to pay, which
Right.
at the end of the day, if we feel it's necessary,
we want to use our one option.
Time wisely.
Yeah.
So we probably do want to be ready with questions and things, yeah.
that's where I thought it'd be useful to talk about some things now, if we have some things we want to give them beforehand.
A couple things that struck out to me and I needed clarification on for, I guess one thing would be that the fire services survey or whatever. It always makes me nervous whenever we are getting involved in the volunteer end of things. Because I know there are some that are struggling and some that are doing well. And I don't want to see something get railroaded through in something that is working well. So I think it'd be really good. I know there's some other areas, departments that have been consolidated within the county. It'd be interesting to hear how they perceive it now, with 10 years beyond under their belt, just to see what. So that's just concerning. Clarification on that multimodal transportation on page 108. Now there is path or access to the. Is that on the north side or south side of the railroad tracks? I'm guessing it's the north side.
The railroad tracks that go underneath the
Correct, yeah, so it'd be on the north end,
North side.
and that would just be paced, coming in, something like Flat, or a few others to get over there, okay.
I think, they could correct me if I'm wrong,
That's the only thing makes sense.
here.
You're asking if the small middle application plan, which section would be?
There's a B there, implement access management,
I think the idea is to have fewer exit or entrance points onto Mount Sydney Road. So kind of follows that access management that they looked at in other areas to put more things to the rear where properties join, and then you may only have one or two roads that access Mount Sydney Road as opposed to every house.
and I think it's probably also getting Smoketown,
Yeah.
rear access in Smoketown.
Yeah, try to pop more clarification on location, because if you're questioning where is it, that means it needs to be written probably better.
Yeah, I was. Cause there is kind of a path there, but I think it's private right now, so.
Related to schools, the walking bus route. I found an interesting concept.
Say that again?
The walking bus route. I don't know if that's the exact term they're using here, but it's where kids aren't getting on a bus, they're actually walking. So I'll use Fritz as an example, where you would have parents walking with the kids across the streets and whatever to get to Fritz, supervising them like a minibus. But I don't know. I don't know how well that would actually work. I could see it in the city working well.
I believe it has been done at Fritz, if I'm not mistaken, in the past. Only because I know someone who is now in high school here, who I believe was part of a group that like literally was walked to school by parents.
Yeah.
And they would have attended Fritz, so I can find out more information on what that was done.
And because it is, I mean, for Fritz, there is. There are a bunch of neighborhoods that do walk and some aren't really close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good walk. So I wouldn't like want my kindergartner to be doing that walk by themselves. And then they have a crossing guard pick them up, but it's all on well, no, they're actually on both sides now of Hornick that people walk.
That could tell you that I let my son ride his bike from Millcross Road to Fritz, but that was when things were much more quiet.
With that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Creek Hill, the houses on Creek Hill, do they walk down to? Well, I'm glad they put that sidewalk in. So they don't have to keep crossing the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, they could walk along those, I mean, there's a sidewalk connecting, but those houses probably have kids.
Randy, you mentioned the kind of the residential concerns as far as how much space is available for that. I'm so used to looking at RFPs. So this is a very different document for me. But I'm also trying to figure out priorities of some of these things, right? If everything is at the same point of importance, then nothing is to some extent, it feels that way. Do we have a priority order for these things of any kind?
To Jacob.
I mean, I would argue based on the township putting the resources and doing the housing study, there's a very high priority in providing more housing and addressing the housing issue. Just from the resources that have been put into that, studying it. A lot of this plan, a lot of things come out of here, you see references to that housing study. That's kind of a big theme. So definitely finding ways for more housing, making that work, I think that's been a pretty big priority.
It's helpful, just because I'm trying to evaluate, I'm trying to figure out what is the most important pieces of it, and I'm coming in completely cold, so. Understanding what the goals of this are help.
Yeah, and part of this, really the big purpose to have this is so we can amend our zoning ordinance based on this, where we can try to meet some of these goals.
You also relook at the subdivision land development ordinance with this.
That was not too much part of it, but there's definitely some changes.
Some of the multi-unit housing, things of that nature. Yeah, I think that for me, the housing study piece was that I think it's 90% of the employees of East St. Peter Township commute into the township as opposed to live in the township. That's a huge number.
Net workers,
That's a huge number.
not just employees here at the office, but all.
Right, yes, the entire township. So providing the housing opportunities for those folks is one of the, I think, is one of the priorities. And I do agree with Jacob. I think that's why the supervisors looked at the housing plan and had that done prior to looking at this plan.
Thank you.
And more workforce housing.
Yes,
And,
however you want to define that. So that's another issue I have with this document, just based on my own experience of how they define the housing. The 80%, the 100%, 100 to 120. And then they skip, there's no 60 to 80, they go 60 to and lower. So there's no 60. So, but workforce housing is the new term for assisted housing, lower income.
Oh, it is?
housing. Oh, yes.
Good.
You just created a term that's more palatable. More being recorded, but it's more palatable to the community. So saying workforce housing is easier to talk to people about than say it's housing for lower income individuals.
Yeah, but those are the people who are working and
Correct.
that need that.
But our educators fit in that same lower income housing now. Like that's the thing that's.
Police.
Yeah.
Township employees fall into that category. That's always been an issue for me that we changed the term, but it's the same group of people we're talking about.
And right now, that type of housing is where in the township? I know we don't have a lot of it, but.
No, we don't.
In Greenfield.
Sort of what Pi's doing over there and that's.
So, yeah, what I had done in Greenfield, that could be considered affordable, the manufactured housing.
Oakview Road, isn't there? Oakview Road over across 30 from like behind the state police barracks.
So I think it depends who you talk to. So today in the city, if you talk about a monthly rent of $1,200 a month, people will say, I can't afford that. But that is a relatively affordable rent for a 2-bedroom home. Then you always run into the issue of asking developers to build that housing, but not providing them with any way to lower costs. So either the building code, zoning, subdivision, land development, all of those things need to be looked at to lower the cost of developing that housing, because otherwise subsidy is the only answer to make something affordable for someone today. And our housing market continues to go up instead of down. So Greenfield, while they're doing 1-bedrooms and efficiencies, they're still close to a rental rate that is challenging for someone who's at 80% median or less.
Something to hope out of this is, we can get guidance to, especially our zoning regulations, to make more housing by right in different ways, like allowing higher density levels, things like that, where people aren't coming to the zoning hearing board and just making the process a little bit easier. But this is a good, and the housing study is ways that we can do that. But again, we're balancing how the residents want the township to look. And again, this whole document is kind of a balancing act. That not everyone's going to be happy.
If you look at the employment opportunities that exist here in the township, that 90% of the people aren't living here. Why aren't they? Is it affordability? Is it the lack of units? I think that's what the housing study looked at. And I think it's a combination of both. It's not enough units, and that's why you see more apartment buildings being built today than you do single family homes. But we're going to have that conversation soon with Devin on townhouse development as opposed to single family development and things like that. So it is a balance how you do all of that. But if you want those folks to live here, you've got to make it affordable. Yeah, and yeah, just give you an idea, so a 60-unit affordable housing complex that HDC would develop on College Avenue, 60 units. Their capital stack involved, I believe, at least 7 different funding sources to enable them to provide rents that are 60% of median income. And that's the county's median income, not the city's. So for the city to meet the county's, you'd almost have to be down to 30% of, of the county's median to be affordable to city residents. So that's just all the challenge, and the resources to help a developer build that don't exist. I don't know if I know Ethan was there at the Strong Towns forum that was recently held in the city. Ethan talked about what East St. Peter Township was doing with accessory dwelling units and things like that. But the gentleman who was the main presenter from Strong Towns said to Dana Hagen of HDC, "I'm sorry you had to spend all that time doing that for 60 units." And it took them over 3 years before they've got to construction. So they have all those carrying costs of that period of time as well. So it's a challenge. It's not just here. It's a challenge in every community.
I'm happy to hear, Jacob, I'm happy to hear that township does recognize that these are real costs and that they are our. So if we can alleviate some of that, it will make a difference.
There's just, feel free to just send me anything you want me to forward along to the consultant. I'll try to consolidate some of the comments, whatever, you talked about here, whatever you want to send me. We can combine those with, when I say staff comments, it's mostly me and Tara's comments. Just kind of together. That way HRG can probably be a little more prepared to address the comments to hopefully speak.
Okay.
I'll keep an eye on the agenda. Sorry. The next meeting, what is that? That is January 13th. By the end of the year. That sounds like a lot of time, but only a few weeks. Just want to say that, so it sounds like a lot of time. Especially now too, because I have more, I think after next week, I'll have a little more time to. Sooner the better, but obviously it's a lot to drill into, especially for you. If you have any questions, anybody has questions too, just feel free to reach out to me. I don't know.
Would be helpful to have, everyone else seems to know where everything is in this township, but except me. But I feel like I would love to have a little map of being like, this is where, like, they're talking about this road and I'm like, okay, where, and I'm Googling the road. Like, it'd be nice to see like a map of the whole township. I don't even know if you have something like that, like a smaller one, but that doesn't have all the roads. It just has, it's just tricky, like looking through this and not knowing where, because I haven't lived here all my life.
I'm in the same, I feel the same when I'm going through.
Yeah.
And the rest of
Really, it's hard to get through. Yeah. Now I'm like looking like, okay, where is this and where are these properties?
Yeah, and that was one of my comments too, a staff comment, some of the maps is there wasn't these more reference points.
Yeah.
Some of the maps need to be cleaned up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard to get, these overarching maps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else for the conversation? We have no other business. So I will accept the motion to adjourn. Jansen moved. Is there a second? John seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved.